ghosting. This is the person who makes a bunch of plans, says they'll be there, then they don't show up, and they don't even respond to your messages. Or you find out last minute that they're not showing up. If you have to break your promise or your commitment, yes, that is not fun in general, but at the very least you could do is just message the person running the game so they can make adjustments for this. This drives me nuts. I've had this so many times. It wouldn't be so bad if I just had a little heads up. And what makes me really frustrated is when the person knows weeks in advance that they're not going to be there and they just don't tell you. It's like, I'm not going to be mad at you. This is not, you canceling on this is not going to ruin our friendship. But what is going to make my life a headache is not knowing that you're canceling. So if you have to cancel a game, just let the person know as soon as you can, so that they can make the appropriate adjustments. If you are planning on running a game for a party of 6 and you're only going to wind up with a party of 3, there is a good chance that that game master is going to have to make some major adjustments to the session that they had planned. Or for that matter, throw in additional things so that there are other things to do than the final boss. If you're canceling, there's also a chance somebody else is canceling, and that is why it is so important to let somebody know that you're canceling. Continuing on the rude behavior, backseat DMing. I had a campaign, I had it set in a completely alternate world to anything that was written by Wizards of the Coast, and it was a dark, grim campaign setting, and I had a player ask me, hey, can I play Shadarkai? And before I could even answer, one of the players across from that player was like, no, you can't, they don't exist here. I'm like, how do you know? You don't know, you know nothing about this world that I have worked on. Why are you chiming in? And sure enough, they didn't know what they were talking about. I said, yes, you can play that. I'm going to nerf it a little bit because I think Shadarkai is a little overpowered, but yes, you can play Shadarkai. And the other player was just so salty about that. Well, I don't understand why they're allowed to do that. And it's like, because I'm the DM, that's why. The thing that really got me about that too is I had actually created a page of custom rules to create a more grim, dark feel, and I had sent that out to everyone, and I had handed them all physical copies, and he tried to make judgment calls that were literally on the paper, and I told him, no, it doesn't work that way. And he's like, it does in the 5th edition rulebook. And I'm like, read the rule primer that I gave you. I gave you a physical copy of it. Look on page 2. Right? It was actually a 4-page pamphlet, and he looks on page 2 and goes, oh, well, that's really stupid. Well, too bad. It's not my fault you can't read. Go back to 5th grade. And speaking of 5th edition and things I've complained about previously, 10-minute plus turns. Oh, man. I kind of joke about this a little bit sometimes about 5th edition, but really if you have a good player group and you're playing 5th edition, turns usually don't last that long. But I have had players at my table who take that long on their turn. And in a great twist of irony, these were not inexperienced players who wanted to try and figure out the rules so that they could play correctly. No, the people that take the longest at my table have all been people who have been playing 5th edition for a minimum of 7 years, and they take 10 to 20 minute turns. What is up with that? It kills your momentum. It drives me absolutely nuts. It's actually one of the reasons I switched over to Shadowdark, and then the player that was the worst about it is the one that actually ended up complaining and still trying to take as long as possible on their turn, even in that system. You know, I would understand if it was a lengthy turn because you're legitimately trying to figure something out, or because you're new to a system, or something along those lines. Like, I can understand taking a little longer, but what this mindset is trying to do is they are trying to, like, game the system somehow. And rather than just doing what they want to do, they are doing what they think they will be able to optimize the best. And it is totally okay with them if everybody else at the table has to wait on them. Because in their mind, they are the most important person, because they're the greatest, the smartest, and the best. These players are problematic. You should talk to them maybe 1 or 2 times, but after that, maybe just start booting them from the table. Speaking of disrespect, though, let's talk about insulting players. Oh, man. These players can bring down the mood like that. First example, actually, luckily it hasn't happened to me, but I have been at a table where I saw this happen and I felt bad for the game master, and that is my game, or this other game I'm playing, is better than yours. Oh man, even if that was true, and when I saw it I very much doubt it was true, but even if it is, that is so rude. That is so rude. Do not ever say that. If you have some criticisms, maybe talk privately with the game master afterwards if you can, and just let him know, hey, just so you know, I would prefer this, or hey, just so you know, I don't like this. And so if somebody is going to handcraft a world for you, and they're doing their best to try and be fair at the table, and they're not just, clearly picking favorites or doing something like that, and your response is to say, oh, this other thing's so much better than yours, that is super rude. Don't do that. Another one. You're stupid for playing this game. It's like, oh man. This is once again goes back to that snotty 5th edition player that I had at my table, who immediately would say that about every other game system. Shadow Dark, Pathfinder, didn't matter. He would say those systems sucked and that they were stupid and the people who played them were stupid. And I'm like, really? I'm pretty certain that there's a lot of people who are smarter than you. I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. If I saw him again and I had to deal with that, I probably would say that, but I digress. The other insulting kind of example that I have is right in line with this sort of arrogant, snotty attitude, and that is, my character is better / your character sucks. This once again was actually my birthday one-shot. This was a sequel to the first one where the guy gave himself a really overpowered weapon. It wasn't even fun smack talk. It was legitimately just like insulting things said about me and about my character. And it's like, dude, you are at somebody's birthday party and you are having a game ran for you, and you just browbeat a dungeon master into giving you something you shouldn't have had, and your response is, now that I've over-optimized my character, rolled in private, by the way, did not roll his stats at the table, and somehow wound up with just really amazing stats, and then also wound up with that legendary weapon. Now that he has all of that, everybody else sucks. Oh, look at me, you're so lucky to have me at the table. Your character is weak, your character sucks. That's really weird to me. It's like, you realize this is like a fantasy game of like imagination and creativity. So just because your numbers are higher does not mean you are a better player. In fact, most of the time it means you are a worse player. This was the second to last time he ever came over. Before, once again, I booted him from the group and the house. And all this kind of brings me to the next point, which is arguers. This is the person who won't just roll the dice. They have to argue. This is worse than the devil's advocate, but they can also be a devil's advocate. This is the person who you say, you want to climb the wall? You can climb the wall. Go ahead and roll athletics. And they go, nah, I should be able to roll acrobatics. I'm a dex-based character. I want to roll acrobatics. And you say, nope, that is what you're rolling. Wow, this is really ridiculous. I should be able to roll acrobatics and do some flips off the walls and blah, 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 blah. And they waste a bunch of time arguing. Don't argue. Roll the dice and accept it. You can point something out. Maybe if you say something like, oh, well, I think you said that there was a trapeze around. I wanted to be able to actually swing from this side to the other side. Could I use acrobatics for that? In which case you might get a yes. But you know what? Sometimes you don't, and you have to live with that. Not being perfectly optimal is okay too. Roll the dice and stop complaining. Really bad hygiene. Back to the hygiene issue. This one's particularly nasty. This one almost falls into my do not tolerate category. I don't know how far and widespread this is. I had a player who would sit there at the table picking his nose, and it wasn't just like, oh, I had an itch, let me just rub my nose. No, he shoved his finger up there, pulled out, I'm not even joking here, a 1/2 inch long booger, and just sat there at the table with this booger on his fingertip. and it was the most disgusting thing we saw. Well, actually it's not. I'll get to the most disgusting part later. Another example is a person who, drank too much and would fall asleep. Also, booger issue. Completely crusted the pillow that we gave him in boogers. And it's like, dude, you are wiping your boogers on the pillow that you're sleeping on. This is disgusting. But the absolute worst of it all was a skid mark. This is a person who took a crap and didn't clean themselves off enough, and they actually left a skid mark. I won't say where. It was on a bed. But that was absolutely disgusting. It was shortly after this that, yes, and once again, it's the same person, they got kicked out. The reason this isn't on the kick out immediately is because we all have different levels of hygiene. I try to keep mine on the higher end of things, but you have to be able to tolerate differences, and if somebody crosses that boundary, it's important that you talk to them about it. If they continue to do it, that's when maybe you need to consider not having them over anymore. Now let's move over from bad hygiene to bad attitude again. We're going to talk about something that actually fellow YouTuber Seth Skorkowski has brought up, and he's called it the rage monkey. This is the person who will get excessively angry at the table. When you get excessively angry during games, it completely sucks the fun out of the game for everybody. It's really important to keep track of anger and attitude. I myself can get very frustrated when I understand something and somebody else doesn't. And it's important to make note of character flaws like that and to work on it. If you are somebody who is a rage monkey, it's important to remember when you sit at a table, you are playing a game with a lot of different people, and at the end of the day, you're not losing any money. Nothing is going to kill you. It will be okay. And if you really don't like something, talk about it more constructively. And if it bothers you that much, just don't play the game. Or don't play with that group of friends. And right next to the rage monkey, main character syndrome. We've all heard this one before, and it is as bad as what you hear. This is the person who wants to talk over everybody else. This is the person who wants to do everything, be the best at everything, because they want to be the main character. When you have somebody like this at your table, it's very important to try and remind them that they are not the main character and that there are other people who want to take their turn. And this comes out in a lot of different ways. Either their character talking over other players' characters, their character trying to be the one to start the fight so that they can get the first action, person who wants their backstory in the entire game and wants the entire game revolving around their character. Never give in to the person who has main character syndrome, and try to talk to them about it so that you can avoid those issues in the future. This is the last one in the problematic category, and this one is definitely starting to skirt the do not tolerate. This one is the careless oaf. The careless oaf is really bad about breaking objects and just destroying stuff. And I'm not talking about the person who accidentally bumps something over and it breaks. I'm talking complete carelessness and then attitude afterwards. I have seen somebody who came over, they broke almost an entire set of glasses that I had. And these glasses were not for communal use. They actually went into my kitchen, dug through my cabinets, and took glasses they were not supposed to take. All the while, I had in my game room a completely stocked shelf of glasses for them to take. And I kept telling them, stop doing that, and they wouldn't. Their record for breaking stuff was my sink handle, 2 glasses, and a plate, all in one night. That is not clumsiness, that is carelessness. If somebody is really klutzy and really careless, that sometimes you have that and you have to kind of work around that. That's why I had a separate shelving of glasses in the game room of glasses that I did not care about or ones that were more robust. But if somebody is being that disrespectful and you talk to them after one time, kick them out. Get rid of them. It is not worth it. This is the same attitude that this person had when they would do things like park behind me. Sometimes that can't be helped given your situation. Where I live, there's literally about 9 parking spots that you can take before anybody is blocked. behind anybody else. And every single time they would come over, they would pull right up behind me, block me in, come into my house, go into my kitchen, dig through my cabinets, pull out glasses that were either valuable or sentimental, take it downstairs, and then I had to worry the whole time if they were going to break it. And when I addressed this with them, it was just straight attitude. Never, ever make the mistake I did. You never tolerate that. Kick those people out. And this brings me to my final category of do not tolerate. Get these players out. Get them out of your group. Get them out of your house. If you have a game store, maybe even consider kicking them out. First up on the list of do not tolerate, bringing substances to somebody's home or their game store after you have been told not to. Oh my goodness, I don't have anything against people wanting to have a good time, but when somebody tells you no more booze, no more weed, or whatever else you might be imbibing in, do not bring that to my house, and you still do that, first of all, you probably have a problem, and you need to start addressing that. Second of all, that is beyond rude and disrespectful, and sometimes even falls into legal problems. Do not ever tolerate that person. Kick them out, and kick them out brutally, and don't have any empathy for them whatsoever. You kick them to the curb. If they had a ride to your house, guess what? They can wait on the street where they belong. Another one, bad attitude that reoccurs. Much like everything else on the list, I believe in talking to people and trying to work things out. But these people are people who have bad attitudes and they bring it to your table again and again and again. When they do this, it brings everybody else down. I learned this lesson the hard way because I had a group of 4 people, almost 5, and one player ended the entire campaign with their bad attitude because they brought it again and again and again. And I lost the other players who I actually liked way better, and I have not been able to get them back. And that was my big lesson in when to kick somebody out. So when somebody has repeated bad attitude, get rid of them. Once I kicked that person out, I have now had successful groups. I can now run games for other people once again, and things are starting to heal. But that person can destroy a group and they can set you back. Moving on to the inappropriate joker. This is not the person who cracks a joke when you've managed to paint a picture and then they shatter that picture. That's kind of annoying, and that's more in the somewhat problematic. This is the person who you invite over somebody who has some sort of trauma in their past, like something really bad happened to them, and then you have this butthole at your table who is cracking jokes about that thing that happened to them. And you're told, don't do it. I made the mistake of being more tolerant with this person. I try to allow people a little bit of leeway because we all come from different backgrounds, and it's important to kind of set boundaries there. But this person made tons and tons of jokes about things that were not funny, and they were not funny to anybody at the table. And everybody expressed frustration with them, and they wouldn't change. Professor Dungeon Master of a Dungeon Craft talked a lot about how he had a player who was mauled by a dog when they were a child, and so he won't run scenarios where somebody is mauled by a dog or there's dog attacks. And that's a very specific thing. Most of the time it's fine to run this, but when you find out that's like something that somebody has experienced and has stuck with them, what you don't need is another player sitting at the table cracking jokes about it. Why would you do that? If you find out somebody had a best friend they were sitting next to and that person got shot in the face, don't tolerate somebody cracking jokes about getting shot in the face. That's very similar to what happened in my group. And these are some of the worst people. And if they can't control themselves, if it's really like a disability for them, then once again, they need to find another group. Get them out of your group. Do not tolerate that. It is not somebody who has a simple difference of opinion. It is not somebody who has a different background than yours. That is somebody who is being either malicious or so excessively socially calloused that they do not belong around other people. Get them out of there. And then finally, last up on this list of do not tolerate. This one is kind of more of a broad overview of everything, but this goes out to the people who are running these games. Okay? If you own your house or you're renting your apartment and you are running these games, it is very important to remember your house is your house. If you have somebody coming over to your house and they have the mentality that your house belongs to them, you will have problems with those people. And that is where most of the things on this list that were the worst came from. Do yourself and everybody else a favor. Address it with them maybe one time and explain why very clearly to them. It is your house, not theirs. You make the rules, they don't. And if they don't like it, they can leave. But these have been some of my worst player experiences, or things that I've experienced as a player next to other players. Have you had anything nearly this bad? Are there things you feel could have been on this list that were not mentioned? Please leave what has happened to you or your thoughts in the comments section below. And remember, let the dice fall where they may. For more content, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. If you would like to check out the Etsy store with a lot of really cool minis perfect for either Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, or Shadowdark, take a look in the description below for a link. The music used in this video will be included in the description as well.